Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Garage, the Court of Public Opinion in session for the next... We never actually have a time, do we, Pete? It goes till it goes, I suppose.
Yes, that's it.
Or it goes till it finishes. Anyway, Peter Clayton's behind the camera, I'm Jeremy Cordeau. The Court of Public Opinion is in session. Hope you've had a good week so far. It's been really hot here in Adelaide, but nevertheless, a lovely summer. Beautiful weather, really. And speaking of the weather, lordy, 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 it creates havoc everywhere it turns up. I'm talking about the bird flu, avian flu. It's now been discovered to be in Antarctica. Pristine, beautiful Antarctica. Now, Australia and New Zealand are the only countries left in the world as yet not affected. And when you think about the wildlife, and it's not just bird flu because it can transmit to other animals, when you think of the wildlife which would be highly vulnerable in Antarctica, think of all the penguins and the seals, heaven knows what else. Extraordinary, and I don't think there's anything anybody can do about it because it spreads and people aren't even sure how it spreads. Again, it's one of those blessed things that in Australia we have a moat around us and it's a bit difficult to get here in most cases. So we should honour and respect our isolation, frankly. By the way, speaking of pristine and lovely, I see Manly Beach in Sydney has been named the best beach in the world. Pete, have you ever been to Manly?
Yes, I can't say that it would be the best beach.
No, I can't either. I mean, it's got the Norfolk Pines and it's got the Manly Corso, as they call it, which is just shops and cafes and, you know, strolling minstrels and things like that. When I last saw it, it had strolling hippies. It was quite colourful and interesting, but there's no surf really to speak of. Oh yes, there's surf, but it's not special. It's not sort of like Bondi, not that you'd want to go to Bondi, frankly, anymore. I don't know. It's nice, but nothing special. Can I put it that way? I don't know who chooses these things. They picked a beautiful beach. I haven't seen, can't comment on it, but they picked a beautiful beach on Kangaroo Island.
Stokes Bay.
What was it? Stokes?
Stokes Bay, and it is beautiful.
Stokes Bay on Kangaroo Island. They named that. I think that might have been last year. We did that, talked about it, as the best beach in the world. Hard to get to, I think.
You have to go through a little hole in the rock.
You've got to go through a hole in the rock?
Just a little...
hole in the rock?
Yeah, basically. I don't know any other way to say it, but yeah, that's it.
I must say, to my chagrin, sadness and embarrassment, I have never been to Kangaroo Island. Yet I'm told it is one of the most beautiful places in the world. Anyway, there you go. Something else to put on the list. NVIDIA. I still don't know that I'm pronouncing it properly, but this particular company's growth continues. Wow! The company is now worth $3 trillion. Now that is more than the value of all the shares on the Australian stock market put together. Now, is that a bubble or is that a bubble? We'll continue to watch it with interest. Now, for as long as I can remember, and I tend to remember things going back better than I remember things that happened yesterday. for some reason. But as long as I can remember, for as long as I've been doing radio programs and current affairs shows, equal pay has been an issue, a topic. I think it's been the law for something like 50 or 60 years. The law. So what's the issue? The law is the law. Equal pay for equal work. I can't see what's so hard about that. The Workplace Gender Equality Centre. Whoa! Oh, gee, I'd like to drop in on them and have a look. The Workplace Gender Equality Centre. Can you imagine? I'll bet you that's a government setup, bureaucratic setup. Anyway, they're published for the first time, and I don't mean any disrespect, they're published for the first time. It's probably about naming and shaming. Anyway, it's a list of all of the companies, big and small, and just what their pay gap is between men and women. The financial industry, banks, construction, communication companies, insurance companies, airlines. Oh, Qantas came in for a serve. Look, it seems just about everyone either doesn't know the law or doesn't want to know the law or somehow imagines that the law does not apply to them. I don't know. The gap. Here's that word again. The gap. The gap. Now, the gap varies from 15% to over 50%. That is to say that women are disadvantaged to these extents. Facts and figures. I'm assuming they're right, of course. They're here for everyone to see. The reaction is going to be really interesting. See how people respond to being outed in this manner. If a man and a woman are doing the same job, what possible justification could there be to pay them differently? I'm also assuming that we don't have a situation here where women have some benefit, advantage, consideration, flexibility that men don't have. In other words, I'm assuming that women have not traded off some money for some other benefit. And that, of course, would be by agreement. Now, if you look at a few situations, take the AFL, for example. It's not your usual workplace, but the AFL footballers are paid a lot more than the AFLW footballers, the women. Now, that must be by agreement. I mean, these people aren't drafted. They agree, and I'm sure they have managers who sign a contract, etc., etc. But because, and now I'm reading between the lines, of course, here, the men attract more and bigger sponsors and a larger audience, and therefore more money. Anyway, look, it's up to each of us to agree to whatever terms and conditions are offered. Yes, sir? No, sir? I would prefer 3 bags full, sort of thing. It's always hard to know when you go for a job. It depends on a lot of different things. How desperate are you? How badly do you want the job? How hard should you bargain? You don't want them to walk away. What are the real limits of this company to pay me what I might want? How badly do they in fact want me? Look, it's a negotiation. No one can help us through that. It's just a negotiation. You do the best deal you can. I always worked on the basis that if I could get my foot in the door And even when I owned companies, I treated people the same way on the other side of the table. But when I was climbing the slippery pole, ladder, whatever, I always worked on the basis if I could get my foot in the door. Didn't much matter what they paid me. I would prove my worth. And then I could leverage my way up from there. But first you've got to get through the door. And sometimes you've got to look like a bit of a bargain to do that. But that's just me. That was a philosophy I had. It did serve me well, I must tell you. I see that Sweden, which has been neutral for hundreds and hundreds of years, how do I put it, neutral, a non-aligned country, non-aligned with, you know, the First World War, the Second World War, any war, non-aligned, has now become a member of NATO. And like Finland, Sweden probably wouldn't have considered it except for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So Putin created with his behavior the very thing that he was afraid of, the expansion of NATO. It has to be the very definition of an own goal, I would think. Meanwhile, the Trump juggernaut rumbles on. He seems to be pretty fearless. His comments about Prince Harry, I heard the other night. He said of Prince Harry, he betrayed the Queen. He betrayed his mother. He would have no protection under me. Well, for all the criticism of Trump, I reckon that would probably resonate with people. I guess it's about reading the room, which is what politicians have to be so good at. You've got to read the room. Well, by that I mean, you know, make a judgment about what the community is thinking. The room might be easy because it's right there in front of you, but you've got to do the same thing about the broader community. And if you can read that, you've got a huge advantage. Watching the story on 7 News about Dan Murphy's profits, everyone's talking about profits at the moment. Coles. Now there's an interesting story, came out yesterday. Their half-year profit was $500 million. Their full year would then be over $1 billion. On one hand, of course, when you talk about these companies making huge amounts of money, well, they employ hundreds of thousands of people, and that's good. They have, I don't know how many millions of shareholders, and that's good. The money just doesn't go flowing into the executive structure of the company. It's divided up against ordinary working Australians who happen to be shareholders, either themselves or through superannuation of these big companies. That money is distributed. And those same people would be screaming blue murder if at the end of the financial year the companies in which they were invested were not making a profit to be divided among the shareholders. There is nothing wrong with making a profit. But just going back to Dan Murphy's, which is owned by Woolworths, I think. Anyway, the story was people aren't buying the expensive premium brands anymore. Well, so what? Look, when things get tight, that's probably not the best word to use when you're talking about a liquor store. But you know what I mean. When things get tight, we change. You know, we buy a home brand or a cheaper alternative. That's okay. That's what smart people do. We adjust. And the retailers have to adjust as well. Is it a good thing that everyone goes to university? We were talking about it the other day, and this story rattles on. It could be sandstone. It's what they call, when they talk about sandstone universities, these are the great places of learning. Probably going back to colonial times when they used to build all these universities out of sandstone. They look impressive. They are impressive, let's face it. Well, it could be sandstone for all of us. But it could be that universities are also, these days, a hotbed of discontent and rebellion, not learning and wisdom, sending more and more people into the maelstrom of discontent. Could be just plain stupid. When you think how much tradies, people who go to trade school, and craftspeople can earn, you've got to think about that. You've got to weigh it up, but most importantly, follow your heart. But the idea of this new plan of the federal government, in other words, I sort of see it as taxpayers funding the dismantling of society. We should tell them to pull their heads in. We'll have an opportunity to do that. Well, some people will this coming Saturday with the by-election, but generally speaking, we'll have an opportunity come the first couple of months of next year, I think, with the election, the federal election. But the whole point of this university review and the changes that they're talking about is to improve Australia's economy and productivity. Yet at the same time, this government wanted the divisive voice, a racist, expensive duplication of what we already have. Then there is the $1 trillion that they want to spend on a climate problem that we don't even have. There are so many contradictions with these people. Yes to nuclear submarines, but no to nuclear power. They care about the climate, but we remain the only country in the G20 with a ban on nuclear power. And they think of themselves and call themselves progressive. You've got to be kidding. They behave like flat earthers. They want us to be the clever country. Terrific. Yet their $10 billion higher education fund, this is the one that underpins this revolution in higher learning, this $10 billion higher education fund will be a tax on the university money that would otherwise go to research. Pretty stupid. Anthony Albanese's frequent reference to having come from public housing, yet he can't wait to get to billionaire Anthony Pratt's next big extravagant soiree, and not worried about being photographed there. Not a lot of this makes any sense. Did they ever think anything through? Jason Clare, the Minister for Education, plays, like Anthony, on his poor upbringing. Well, I grew up dirt poor, but I didn't come out of it a rat bag, and I didn't come out of it a socialist. For God's sake, these people should listen to the chancellors of the majority of universities. In fact, not the majority, all of the chancellors and vice-chancellors of the great learning institutions of this country. They describe this new government's policy on higher education as a tax on learning and the advancement of education. My God, are you going to believe the politicians or the learned professors of our sandstone universities. Do I have any more time, Pete?
Well, let's see.
I've lost.
Yeah, where?
Yeah, no, I'll get to my dates, that's what I'll do. And I do apologise because I've lost my bloody glasses. I thought I left them down here on Sunday when we were recording last. I'll be damned if I can find them. They'll turn up, I know. But anyway, be that as it may, happy birthday if you're having a birthday, happy wedding anniversary, day of celebration, may it be a really lovely one. Wherever you are in Australia, it's bound to be a lovely day. February the 28th, 1978, Mr. Ed, the talking horse, dies. Alan Lane was the voice of Mr. Ed. Hello, I'm Mr. Ed. Such a simple idea. I love it. 1979. Bugsy Siegel, American gangster who created the casinos in Las Vegas. He was born in Brooklyn, New York, on this day in 1906. Bugsy Siegel. They were colourful characters. Criminals, but colourful characters. Jane Russell, American actress and leading sex symbol of the 1940s and 50s. The outlaw, Some Like It Hot. She dies at 89. I think it was The Outlaw that she was doing. It was a movie that was being made by her lover at the time, Howard Hughes. And he, so the story goes, invented the bra. Well, I don't know how do you invent the bra. The brassiere had been around for years, hadn't it? Anyway, the story goes that he tied two handkerchiefs together to put her ample screen presence under some sort of control. And so the story goes that the bra was born. I don't know. You can ring me on Friday and tell me whether that story is right or not. John Wesley, he creates the Methodist Church on this day in 1784. Vincent Minnelli, the director, an American in Paris. Gigi dies in 1956, but he was born on this day in 1903. Liza's dad, Liza Minnelli. Andre Previn, German-American conductor, the London Symphony, the Pittsburgh Symphony, film scores galore, composer of My Fair Lady, and the jazz pianist. He dies at the age of 89 on this day in 2019. Alan Alda. Alan Alda. Is it Alda or Alder?
Alder, I think.
Anyway, where am I? The final episode of MASH, a 2-hour special directed by the series star, Alan, titled Goodbye, Farewell and Amen. It airs to a record 125 million people who watched it in the United States alone, let alone it's probably still on YouTube. Pete, would you be able to get it on YouTube?
I would think so, yes.
I bet you would. That was in 1983. People loved that. If I've got a bit of time here, JFK names Henry Kissinger Special Advisor on this day in 1961. Tony Curtis got married to his 4th wife, 1993. Her name was Lisa. Anyway, there you go. How many wives did he have, I wonder? I suppose you keep doing it till you run out of money. I guess that's what you do. Mario Andretti, the Italian-American race car driver, the Indianapolis 500, 69, 1978 Formula One world champion. He was born in Italy on this day in 1940. Mario Andretti. And Baywatch actress Pamela Anderson, 31, divorces Monty Crew, drummer Tommy Lee. He was 35, she was 31. They were married for 3 years. Almost killed him, I must tell you. Almost killed him. Anyway, 1998 was the year. What happened to Pamela Anderson, I wonder?
Don't know.
Around somewhere. Listen, thank you very much for viewing the Court of Public Opinion, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back tomorrow. Peter Clayton behind the camera. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Believe in yourself, and goodbye for now.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.